Hi, and welcome to Scarborough Theatre Guild's Let's Talk. I'm Erin, your host, and today with me is Len Henderson. He is Scarborough Theatre Guild's president, treasurer, business manager, chair of the play reading committee, and more. So I'd like to welcome him to our segment today. So Len, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
I want to know, I know you do so much more than what people are aware of behind the scenes, and you do it with such grace. So please tell us a little bit about all the roles that you have and have had, and what brought you to Scarborough Theatre Guild.
Well, I first got interested in Scarborough Theatre Guild when I joined them as part of the cast of No Sex Please We're British in 2005. So I played Mr. Needham. He's the fellow who loses his drawers on stage. We had seen the play, my wife and I had seen the play in London a few years earlier, and I thought it was quite a funny show. And I had no problem losing my drawers on stage because I had discreetly a separate set underneath, so it didn't really matter all that much. But it is a thrust stage. Your nearest audience member is closer to me than you are now, and so no, I didn't really want to risk things. So anyway, I got into other shows with them, comedies mostly. One of my favorite roles was Santa Claus in Dear Santa. And I remember when I came in here, I can work up a pretty loud voice when I want to. So when I came in to bellow ho ho ho, some of the little kids who were playing the elves would have to cover their ears in this small space. But they were afraid. I do like getting some of the reactions from the crowd when I played Santa, for example. My blocking took me toward stage left, and there was a little fellow. It was a matinee, so there was a little fellow, maybe 3 or 4. He was in the front row with his grandmother, and he was fidgeting about. But when he saw me as Santa coming over in his direction, he all of a sudden went. He was just a perfect little angel for the rest of the show, and it was kind of, I just thought, good on you. Yeah. I've had, when I was in Dear Charles, this is one of the second last shows I've been in, my eyebrows can get pretty bushy, and they're very, very white. And so one of my cast members said that her boyfriend had remarked on how cool my eyebrows were, and he couldn't get over it. And I thought, well, okay, that's just one guy. But at another performance after the show, I was out in the foyer, and one lady in the audience walked up to me and asked me if my eyebrows were real. And I thought, wow, to have at least they're noticed. That's I've played a well-meaning neighbor who turns out to be a bully in Ethan Claymore. He's bossing his neighbor around, and I hear someone in the audience going, "Oh, jeez!" And I like hearing little verbalizations out there that you're having an effect on them. And sometimes the reaction isn't quite what you planned. I was in a show once where I played the French ambassador to China, and every time I came on stage, there was a giggle went through the audience. But this wasn't a comedy, so I always had to wonder what is it? But you can't let yourself get stopped by that. You just keep on going. So I would say being Santa Claus was one of my favorites. I played Arthur Conan Doyle in The Reluctant Resurrection of Sherlock Holmes, where I meet Sherlock 2 years after I've killed him off at Reichenbach Falls, and the two of us have this endless argument about whether he is real or not. So there's all kinds of interesting material that I've played on stage, but I think some of the I find even more material in scouting out the plays for a future season. And yeah, it's there's a lot of work that goes on behind the scenes. But one of the other things I do, it's not very well known by guild members, I don't think, is that I have a pretty nice singing voice. And my first 30 or so shows were all musicals, and I was lead tenor in many a Gilbert and Sullivan, and it wasn't until recently that I tried to crack back into the musicals. I auditioned for Scarborough Music Theatre's production of Man of La Mancha, and when I was there, someone on the audition panel came up to me and she said, "I've known you for 10 years. And I had no idea you could sing like that." So I like that. I take that as a compliment. So maybe I'll try again someday.
How wonderful. You've told us a little bit about, some hilarious audience reactions, some of your favorite roles, some hidden talents, and you just started to touch on a little bit about, scouting plays. And things behind the scenes. So can you tell us a little bit more about some of the things that you've done to keep Scarborough Theatre Guild alive and running? All the work that audiences probably don't realize go into keeping a theatre group healthy and happy.
Well, I think if you wanted to start with planning a season, let's pretend that this summer is absolutely normal. At this point, we would just be starting our read-throughs, our weekly read-throughs of the plays that made the top of the list for potentially being in our 2021-22 season. So we're always looking a year and a half, 2 years ahead. And in order to get to that point, we've had a play reading committee would have convened in January or late December. We would have gone through dozens of plays, given our opinions of them, what we like, what we don't like, why this, why not that, until we finally get down to the 9 or so that we read through the summer. And then from those reactions, as well as the committee's own discussions, we boil it down to a recommendation to the board of 4 plays, which, because our season is 4 plays, plus 1 or 2 alternates in case something really falls flat in front of the board, or in case something has the rights pulled. Because that happens too. The rights holder can sometimes yank the rights for a show because, well, I think the last time it happened was with the Players, with I forget which show, but a professional group in the vicinity was going to put on the same show. So when that happens, the rights holder just says, "Sorry, amateurs, they're paying more, so tough luck." After doing that, then we have to decide what order they're going to go in. We have to pull the graphics, and we have to write up what I call blurbs for what these shows are about to try and sell it. And that goes into the brochure with our sister groups. We put together a Theatre Scarborough brochure where all 3 groups promote their season. And all in the meantime, we're still putting on the shows for the current season. And that consists of sending out the audition notice about 40 to 45 days before the audition, and holding the auditions 9 or 10 weeks before opening night, selecting the cast, and then starting rehearsals. And sometimes they start through read-throughs, sometimes some directors like to start moving you around stage right off the bat. Others will have you sit around the table, read the lines, discuss them, work out nuances and stuff. I can't say I really have a preference. I see merits in both ways. But once it's all ready to go, up it goes. And while one show is actually in the theater, it's most likely that the auditions for the next show are being held here at the unit. And so it's a constant grind.
Never a dull moment.
No. And sometimes, because of the way our schedule goes, we do 4 shows, Scarborough Players does 4 shows, which means we switch. You get the early batch of shows, or you get the late batch of shows, and then the next year you switch. So you can have a year where you wrap up a show in July, but have to put up another one in September. Then on the other side of the coin, you wrap up a show in June and don't have to put on another one until October, so you've got a little extra time to work there. But all of it means getting getting things coordinated. There's a rhythm to each show: audition, rehearsal, show, move out, move the next one in 3 months, and all at the same time producing the posters and flyers and publicity materials that we need to get out to the audience and get the ads in the newspaper. Hopefully get some reviews in the newspaper too. Positive ones, I hope.
You make it sound easy in some ways, but I'm sure a lot of our audience members and even some of our volunteers don't realize just how much work is going on behind the scenes. And so you mentioned some of the pre-planning. So a common question a lot of audience members often ask at talkbacks is, how long does it take to get a production to the stage? So what's a typical rehearsal length process look like?
I'd say our typical rehearsals are 8 or 9 weeks. But before that, the director has to have a vision in his mind. He has to have a concept of what the whole thing looks like. So this is mostly up to the director's vision. He comes to us if we put on a show and this director, he or she, says, I would like to direct that show. They come to us with their concept of the show, their vision of the show, maybe even a set design, costume design, all the kinds of things that are part of what they feel the show would look like. And so even though we only start rehearsing 8 weeks in advance, the director's probably been mulling this over in his mind for months. So as far as the guild putting the show together, it's 8 weeks. But as far as the director flogging the show to this group, and if he's not successful with his group, he might want to go and choose to direct another show for another company. A lot of these directors do move about, so they all have ideas, and some of them are very passionate about those ideas, and so a lot of work goes into it. But I think the busiest person in the whole crowd is the director.
Mm-hmm.